Thank you to the people who are supporting me on Ko-fi. You guys are keeping me alive. Every show had its villains. That included shows for kids. They were important to be an example of what happens when the lessons and morals of a specific episode weren't followed. Or a running gag that was defeated by repeating the same trick. Or a rival who was being a dick just for the fun of it. And sometimes these villains were merely the opposite of what the show considered good. They were misfits, unintentionally teaching children all around the globe that being the outsider was bad. And who were the villains of Welcome Home? None other than the Monochrome Gang. A group of 3 black and white puppets, whose aura of evil monochromatic destruction made the very colors around them faded and washed out. Their goal? Making the world feel how they did. Their leader was Martin White, a tall and fat black puppet with a white shirt and white button for his right eye, white dreadlocks and a white mustache above his upper lip. His bulbous nose being white too. Martin was quite fatherly towards the other 2 members, unless they were currently working on a plan to turn the world of Home black and white. Then he became quite determined and obsessive, often ignoring any doubts the other members had. Then there was Jackie Black, a white slender puppet in a black suit, with a white tie. His head made to look like he was bald with a white black mouth, and 2 black buttons for eyes. Jackie was so lanky and thin he could easily fit through the tightest nooks and crannies, and even slide up holes like a snake if need be. Despite his frightening appearance, Jackie really was a klutz and often would stop the Monochrome Gang's plans simply by being gullible. And finally, there was you, Gracie Gray. You were a white puppet, white as snow. Your hair was black and was so long it could cover your entire face and body, unless pulled back into a ponytail. Underneath your hair you wore a white frilly dress with black ribbons. You didn't have a nose, instead you had 2 felt circles above your mouth. And during episodes that played in summer you wore a white sun hat with a whale. You considered Julie Joyful to be your direct rival, since episode 4, which was not only your debut as a character, but it also where she won a singing competition, putting you in 2nd place. Not only ruining Martin's plan, but also creating a deep-seated disdain for the blonde puppet. Though she seemed to be unaware of your specific disdain for her, which honestly made you dislike her even more. Today, you and your gang were in Home's orchard, or more specifically, you alone. Howdy Pillar was about to collect the beautiful apples there to display and sell in a store. Martin had the incredible idea to paint the apples black. How this would turn Home black and white, no one really knew, but it was something to do. The other 2 gang members were busy somewhere else, so you were sitting alone atop a large branch, paintbrush and black ink bottle in hands. Carelessly you kicked your feet into the air. You had been so used to sitting with your feet on the ground that this felt freeing. However, as it turns out, you were a bit clumsy yourself, as your feet hit the top of the ladder, kicking it over. With a loud clang, the ladder fell to the ground. In shock, you just stared at it for 1, maybe 2 minutes before the realization hit you that you were stuck. Your lips quivered. You wanted to curse badly. You were too high up for comfort. If you jumped, that would definitely hurt. A lot. And you weren't sure if you had the bravery necessary for that. Should you call for help? No, that would only attract the colored people. Nah. Home hated you. Maybe if you were patient enough, your boss would send Jackie to look for you. Though he probably managed to end up on the tree himself. You shuffled closer to the tree trunk, leaning against it for comfort. At least home didn't have a lot of bugs crawling around everywhere, making this a little less bad. You have been in a lot of trouble in your life, being hated by the majority of the neighborhood not being the worst one even. But this made you feel stupid. It was a while later. Minutes, maybe even hours later, the sun was already setting, when you heard the noise of footsteps approaching. Immediately stood up on the branch. "Boss, is that you? I'm sorry, the ladder fell." But instead of white dreadlocks, or the bald head of Jackie, someone else arrived. You narrowed your eyes. A blue pompadour, blue suit, yellow skin. It was the painter. Disappointed, you sat back down on the branch. With his hands casually in his pockets, Wally looked up at you. "I was wondering why some of those apples turned black. Knew it had to be the monochrome gang." "You've been doing this for a few days now." Surprised nobody ever caught you. You scoffed and looked away, crossing your arms, a bead of sweat running down your cheek. The last 40 minutes, the setting sun had been on full blast. It was only thanks to you being almost entirely white you haven't had a heat stroke yet. After all, white reflects the sun. Wally leaned his back against the tree's trunk. "Stop being so smug and help me, painter." Wally didn't respond. Not thinking, you took one of the black apples and threw it at him, but he caught it, making you even more flustered. He took a bite out of it, spitting it out after only a single chew. Ew. The ability of ruining anything colorful was quite powerful. Even though you had only painted the exterior shell of the apple, the entire thing had already tasted wrong. It was just sweet and not having the signature apple taste. And it was like biting into concrete with how hard it was. Like someone tried to artificially make the best, worst apple possible. Wally remembered what you and the others did last Halloween. Using your monochrome tricks, you turned gummy bears into black licorice. The only reason that Halloween didn't end in tears was the fact that by simply him painting the gross salty candy red, it turned into delicious strawberry-flavored red licorice. And thanks to Julie deciding to turn this Halloween into a strawberry-themed party, well, the Halloween event turned into a great time. Sighing, Wally threw the apple away, right into a trash can. After all, he didn't like to litter. Before looking up at you, smiling. God, that dumb smile made your cheeks turn gray as you blushed. It was obvious what he wanted, and you pouted. "Please, painter, set the ladder back up so I can climb down." He chuckled. "Nah." "Why? I asked nicely." From his breast pocket, he pulled out a tube of red paint. "First you fix what you did." You puffed up your cheeks. "I'm not touching that." Touching colored paint for a monochrome entity like you was like touching something incredibly hot. You'd burn your fingers. He shrugged. "I guess I'm not helping you." Angrily, you narrowed your eyes, throwing another apple at him. You missed, and he chuckled. "Aw, are you out of ammo?" As he walked over to it to pick it up and throw it in the trash, you smirked. As just when he straightened his back, apple in hand, you let go of the wood. Wally had only a split second to react before you quite literally fell into him, the force throwing him on his back. The two of you began to tussle, rolling down a short incline the tree was located atop. Air was pressed out of both your lungs, and your bodies were aching. Wally was pinned beneath you. You had your fingers tightly grasped around his wrists. Shocked, he was looking at your face. From the fight, your hair was turned into a big, wild fur, and your dress was covered in dirt and grass stains. Some old leaves were stuck in your hair as well. Wally blinked as you grinned down at him. "Thanks for the ride, painter." You let go of his wrists before rushing away. Wally, however, just lied there. There was a deep pain coming from his heart and lungs. And after a few seconds, he coughed up a single red flower petal. Confused, he picked it up from his chest. "Where did that come from?" he asked out loud. There were no red flowers in the entire orchard. It was many days later when Barnaby B. Beagle decided to visit his old friend Wally. The dog hasn't seen the painter in a while, and everyone was concerned. As the dog approached home, the sentient building looked sad. Old chap, what's wrong?" The building puffed its chimney, unleashing a torrent of red petals into the air. "Oh golly, what's going on in there?" The house immediately opened its door to the dog. Concerned, Barnaby jumped on his hind legs to rush into the building faster. Something must be wrong. Inside home, everything was covered in these strange petals. "Wally? Wally, are you all right?" Barnaby began searching the house, checking under sofas, Wally's bed, and the cupboards and bookcases. Even Wally's private painting room. Where could he be? Where hasn't the dog searched yet? The house creaked, almost sounding like an annoyed snarl, followed by the sound of a bursting pipe. Taking the hint, the dog ran into the bathroom. Thankfully, it was unlocked. There, Wally was standing in front of his mirror, his blue hair lifelessly hanging down. He was dressed in a burgundy-colored bathrobe, held together by a golden string. His mouth was hanging half agape. And was that a root coming out of his nose? His eyes were half-lidded and practically lifeless. Horrified, the dog took a step back before adjusting his hat and walking in. Wally didn't acknowledge his friend by looking at him, only croaking a quiet "Hey." Casually, Barnaby placed his right paw on Wally. Well. Looks like old Wally has fallen in love." Wally's eyes slowly looked at Barnaby's face through the reflection of the bathroom mirror. "What are you talking about?" Barnaby chuckled, petting the puppet man's head. "Don't worry, old chap. Just confess to her and this will all go away." "What are you talking about?" "Mama told me about it. You're just a little lovesick. Although..." The blue dog looked around himself. The sink was filled to the brim. The floor was covered. Even the bathtub had a thick layer of petals inside of it. "I've never seen it get this bad. Unless..." Barnaby gasped and took a step back. "You don't know who you're in love with!" Wally blinked slowly. His eyes were so dry it was quite painful. And the green root growing out of his nose made it harder to breathe than it already was. "When did you first cough up one of these petals, Wally? That's important." The dog took hold of the puppet's shoulders, shaking him vigorously like a toddler did a bagged goldfish. "Orchard," mumbled Wally. "What? Orchard?" shouted Wally, before vomiting up more petals. "I was in the orchard, preventing Gracie Gray from turning more apples black." After a short moment of silence, Barnaby snorted, his mouth turning into a big old smile. What? Raising one of his claws to shut up the painter, if Wally said only one more thing, he would. Screw it. Slapping his knees, the blue dog puppet began laughing his heart out. Stop laughing at me, complained the painter. You're in love with Gracie Gray. No, I'm not. Wally blushed hard, looking away. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Julie's gonna be so mad. Oh my god. Barnaby sat down on the toilet. He could no longer stand. With a confident smirk, Beagle now tugged at Wally's sleeve. Just let old Barnaby handle the situation, alright? Minutes later, Barnaby approached the not-so-secret hideout of the monochrome gang. After all, it was way too obvious that the only black and white house, with only grey-colored grass, decorated only with white roses, white tulips, and white orchids, had to be the secret hideout of the monochrome gang. With a smile, Barnaby knocked on the house's door, only for a quite disheveled-looking Jackie Black to open the door. Doc, he shouted at Barnaby, you colored folk are only trouble. Without warning, the slender puppet pulled the dog inside by his tie, the force being so incredible that it took him off guard. And then, once again, Barnaby needed to really try not to laugh. The gang's leader Martin was sitting on a large sofa chair, angrily looking at Barnaby, completely covered in head to toe by white flower petals. Only one sentence came from the large puppet's mouth. What did you colored people do to Gracie? Lying on his lap was you, hanging limply. A grey root was growing out of your right ear. Barnaby smiled, an idea coming to him. A devious idea. But there wasn't really any room for discussions. Oh, this was going to be hilarious. It was late. The sky was tinted in dark orange. Skeptically, Holmes was looking at the new arrivals in front of it. Don't worry, old chap, this is all part of the plan, explained Barnaby. Before Holmes stood the blue dog. Next to him, Martin, the villain who had once bombarded the sentient house with white paint-filled water balloons. In his arms, you were lying. Go on, be nice to it, Martin growled. House, he barked. It's home. The opulent puppet inhaled deeply before saying, Home. Our shared acquaintance, Wally, is suffering from the same illness my right-hand woman is suffering from. Holmes' eyes narrowed. If you could be so kind. Martin couldn't believe what he was about to say, but he did it for your sake. If you don't let me bring her to Wally, they will both perish. So please open your goddamn... So would you please kindly open your door for me? Or her, whatever. Holmes' chimney puffed as he scowled at Martin. It's okay, Martin. Just set her down. Barnaby winked. Besides, the two of them need some privacy anyways. Gently, Martin set you down on the ground. Your own illness had progressed at the same rate as Wally's. You felt weak, your eyes dry, your lungs feeling heavy. Worst of all was the root growing out of your ear. It was heavy and painful. Thankfully, it didn't seem to affect your ability to hear. Somehow your head felt so filled with mud, and you were a little dizzy. As you approached the sentient house, Slowly, cautiously, its doors opened. "All right, Martin, how about we go for a milkshake? My treat." The big puppet huffed darkly, before allowing himself to be guided by the blue dog puppet to the ice cream parlor. It took you a lot of mental effort to enter Wally's house. The painter was sitting in a sofa covered in petals. He looked bad, his hair down, dressed in his bathrobe still. Wally's eyes slowly moved towards you. "Look like crap," he said. "Likewise." Your long black hair was set back into a ponytail, revealing your face to him, something you very rarely did. He looked into your eyes. "Do you know what this is all about?" he said before coughing up a bunch of flower petals. Your face turned gray as you blushed. Seemed like they only told you how to fix the situation. You gritted your teeth. That stupid dog forced you to make all the work. There was a rustling under your chest, indicating you were about to vomit more flowers. Narrowing your eyes, you acted quickly. Or at least as quickly as you could in your sorry state. Carefully you climbed onto his lap. You blushed hard, both your hearts beating incredibly fast now. And then you unleashed a torrent of white petals onto his face. It was strangely beautiful, despite it being quite painful. You coughed. You had almost lost conscious. Wally's eyes sought yours, but as the petals were still gently falling around the two of you, you leaned forward through them, pressing your lips onto his. For a moment he was too shook to respond, but after a second or two, he returned the gesture by gently tugging your arms to nudge you closer into him. Seconds passed, and you teared yourself away from his face. You spit out a red petal that he had spit into your mouth. "Dick," you coughed, already having regained enough energy from the kiss alone to insult him. You pressed your hands on his shoulder to pin him down, while still allowing him to slide his hands across the length of your body. "I feel weird," he said. "Oh, really?" you whispered sarcastically before gently kissing his neck. "I hate you. I hate you so much." You opened your eyes, looking into his before looking down at him. Your hands gently going from his shoulders to his throat. Your thumbs massaging gentle circles over his felt skin, making him gag ever so slightly. "And yet, you're letting me do all the work." "Ugh, I'm weak," he protested. "You just don't want to put any effort into this. Like your sloppy art." He chuckled, his hands tightly wrapping around your wrists. "I'll show you lazy," he whispered seductively. "The first one who comes loses." You narrowed your eyes in response, allowing him to undo the ribbons that were holding your dress together. "Fine by me, painter."